Big college basketball Saturday in store, and we're here to discuss North Carolina at Duke, Kentucky at Florida. I'm Scott Spreitzer, and this guy right here is Matt Holt. He is, of course, Vice President of Business Development, CGT Sportsbooks in Nevada. You can follow him on Twitter at Matthew Holt VP. Let's start with the battle on Tobacco Road in the ACC. North Carolina at Duke. Carolina coming off the loss on Tuesday to Miami, Matt, and they're going to be looking for a season sweep of Duke. And then the Blue Devils, boy, off yet another weird loss, the way it happened. Not that they lose to Virginia Tech on the road is weird, but the fact that they were up 60-52 in that neighborhood with about 3.5 minutes to go in the game, they scored one more field goal and one more free throw over the final 3.5 minutes and lose the game outright. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I don't think anybody's going to be surprised that both these teams are in the top 20 in scoring. You know, UNC 16th, Duke third in the country in scoring per game. But what might be surprising is both of these teams, especially Duke, slightly known as a finesse team. These are the first and second ranked teams in the entire nation out of over 352 teams in terms of rebounding the basketball. It's going to be really interesting to see the battle on the glass here in the rematch of these two teams. Yeah, I tell you what, it wasn't unprecedented that they blew that lead to Virginia Tech or had a weird ending, the Duke Blue Devils. They've had their share of dry spells, even though they score a lot of points, because they've got maybe the most talented team in all of college basketball on an individual player basis. The bottom line is they do have dry spells at times. They scored 49 in the first half in that game against North Carolina earlier this season. They scored like 2 points in the first minute of the second half and scored 27 the final 18 minutes of game time. That was it. They lose the game 82-78. And really, if you look at what North Carolina did, after struggling with Duke's talent in the first half, especially on the boards, they completely out-adjusted Duke. We know how good Coach K is, so to me this means that his players aren't quite computing what Coach K is trying to tell them to do in the second half of some of these games, and they got out-coached and outplayed by Roy Williams and his players in that second stanza. Well, I think two things are happening to Duke, and we saw it in the Virginia Tech game where they got out to a pretty substantial double-digit lead early, is teams are kind of compacting it in the paint right now because Marvin Bagley, once the ball goes in there, it's kind of that black hole syndrome where the ball goes in, it never comes back out. He shoots into double teams. He takes bad shots in the paint. He's kind of known as a me player at this point. So a lot of times they're moving the ball around. They're getting a lot of open looks from the perimeter. But when you're taking a ton of threes, as you know, that's kind of a streaky way to get your offense. You're going to go through streaks where you go 1 for 7. You're going to go through stretches where you go 5 for 6. And, of course, that drastically affects your scoring ability. The problem right now is the ball goes into the paint to Bagley when he's on the court. It never comes back out, and the offense gets stagnant. Sure, and it's scary if you're a Duke fan to know that North Carolina made just 2 of their final 18 field goal attempts in that first meeting, yet won the game 82-78. What did you make for a number? I mean, we're midweek, but neither one of these teams has a game between now and Saturday. What did you make for a number on this particular game? I think it's probably going to be about Duke 5. That big, huh? Yeah, and I think that seems a little steep considering the rivalry and everything and how close the line was the first time. But the fact that it's in-season revenge in Duke and Duke playing for a #1 seed, I think we're probably open 4.5. Don't be surprised if this one ends up 5. Think both of these teams ride their way into the Elite Eight or Final Four? They certainly both could. I mean, these are two of the most talented. Yeah, absolutely. That's right. Let's go to the SEC. Kentucky at Florida. Kentucky on the road here looking to exact a little revenge. They hadn't quite yet hit their stride when these teams met in January. In fact, I was wondering if Kentucky was going to. Their young kids always start hitting their stride usually in mid-January or in conference matchup time, but they took their sweet time to get there this year. They couldn't overcome a decent-sized deficit at the free throw line is what happened in that game. Florida won 66-64. When I look at what Kentucky's done the last 3, because I was starting to wonder, is this team going to get to the dance and get it at large? I mean, I know they will because of their name across their jerseys and all that, but I wasn't so sure they deserved it until the last couple of weeks. But what'd you make the line on this particular game midweek? Obviously, Kentucky has a game as we speak against Ole Miss. Maybe they don't cover that game, but you surely don't expect them to lose to a bad Ole Miss Rebel team on Wednesday night played at Kentucky. I think we're going to open probably Florida 2. That's probably the estimated opener on this game. Both of these teams have gone through, very similar recent stretches. Kentucky had the first 4-game losing streak under Coach Calipari, but they've since rebounded with 3 straight wins over probably tournament teams in a home game against Missouri, at Arkansas, which is probably another tournament team, and versus Alabama. And on the other side, same thing for Florida. 3-game losing streak, rebounded with 2 straight wins at home against the top 15 team in Auburn, and then last night on the road at Alabama picking up the W.
So both these teams playing better of late. Both these teams similar. They don't get a lot of assists. They get a lot of points inside.
Sure.
Kentucky's really strong rebounding. Florida, since they lost their center, hasn't been as strong rebounding. Right. But Kentucky tends to turn the basketball over more in the backcourt. Florida doesn't turn the ball over very much. Look, this feels like a game that's going to come down to who makes free throws and who doesn't turn the basketball over.
We got a couple of days before we get to this game, but I'm sitting there looking at it. You know, I look at the fact that Kentucky held the Gators to 33% shooting and lost that game 66-64. Florida's only 3-6 in the last 9 games against the spread, but Kentucky's no great shakes either when it comes to building your bankroll. They've covered just 6 of the last 15. I got a feeling this one's not going to make my final card when it comes to Saturday, but it's, at the same time, I would say I would have to lean slightly to the Kentucky Wildcats to exact a little bit of revenge, but just a lean for me, Matt.
And I like the way they're playing right now. Look, Calipari said, look, this team, we may not have the shooting we've had in the past, and we probably don't have the speed and athleticism at the guard position that we're used to having, especially at the point guard position. Calipari's known throughout history at Memphis and Kentucky and even UMass way back for his ability to get these elite-level point guards. They don't really have them there in Lexington right now, but they're still really athletic, and that front court is starting to show off on the offensive glass and on the defensive glass. They're as good on rebounding right now as maybe any team in the country.
Good stuff from Matt Holt. Kentucky starting to hit their stride as we speak. Hey, don't forget, after the weekend, the winning continues. It's called Manic Mondays at WagerTalk.com. Just $9 for every daily package on Monday from all the handicappers. For Matt, I'm Scott. Don't forget to check out UFC 222 taking place this Saturday night. That video also here at WagerTalk.com.